Hello. Welcome to my Worlds Recap stream. Um, yeah, I mainly, this is like intended to be like kind of a video, but I like to do it on stream just so that people can interact. Got a couple people in here, doing it at a weird time, just a random time on a Friday. Let me know if my audio is okay. I am using my mic, so I'm not yelling like I usually am. Just makes it a little bit more comfortable for me. Yeah. How's everyone doing? I think, like, kept coming back from Worlds. Like, I know that Jeff and Andre, like, they like streamed like right away. I think on Tuesday or something. It's good stuff. Random lunch break streams. Joe, how's it going? Random lunch break. Yeah. I'm just like Friday I don't have classes, so there's an assignment that was due on Wednesday, so I came back and I was kind of like just working. But there's a lot of thoughts, a lot of Worlds stuff that I want to get out there. Yeah, now's the time. How's everyone doing? As usual, let me know if you have questions. I'm happy to answer random questions. I expect to go on a lot of tangents this stream because there's so much to talk about. I actually have no idea where to start. But yeah, I mean, last week I was in San Francisco. I arrived on October 12th. That's Saturday, the Saturday before the tournament. Spent some time with Fa and her aunt there, who lives there. And Fa and I like jammed a ton of games, practicing BTL and practicing LAT. Yeah, I mean, about the city itself. The city itself is like we had like a really nice view, so like it was really nice. It's really expensive. I think a lot of people ended up like not being able to come because it was very expensive, from my understanding. Yeah, it is a rather expensive city, but it was nice. Yeah, and then going out to the actual event. I mean, like before I say anything about me and about the what happened during the event and stuff, like NSG did a really, really good job. It was a really well run Worlds. There's a lot of really good volunteers and a lot of like organizers and streamers, and like the setup was just really amazing. Yeah. The venue was really amazing as well. Really, really nice space, really big. Lots of space to do what we wanted. There also wasn't like a time restriction that was cutting it too close. So we had a lot of time and leeway in terms of that. And Joe, of course, was volunteering as a judge there and got to interact with him a lot. I'm bummed I'm out camping this weekend instead of playing more Netrunner. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it was really fun. In-person Netrunner events are amazing. Yeah, so start with a couple shoutouts. Again to NSG, to all the volunteers, everybody who made the event happen. And yeah, it was such a pleasure to meet so many wonderful people. People who come out and to say hi, to come by and just introduce themselves was really nice. Getting to play with Brandon and Peter. We'll start with some like random pictures, I guess. So this is like after the tournament where there's me, Brandon, and Peter. First time meeting Peter H. He's been like doing a lot of background stuff with NSG, doing play testing, set testing, and I've interacted with him on strictly online up until now. He's a big part of why the BTL deck existed from last year, and then of course I played a very, very similar deck this year. Yeah. And then we had like a nice group photo at the end at the bar that we went to. Yeah, and some other photos. I'll come back to this one once I'll talk through every round, and this was round, I don't remember, but one of the rounds against Chris Ziechling on table 1 on day 1. Another shout out to Shuga for bringing Netrunner Guess Who. This was a photo. This was a photo that was taken between of Dan and Kyle playing Netrunner Guess Who. I think this happened on Friday, and I saw this photo after I left on Friday. Fa was just like on her phone, and she was just clicking around on her phone, and I saw this photo, and I was like, "That's amazing! I want to play that." So I played this Saturday morning, and then I played it Sunday night during the finals as well. It's like this was so much fun. I love this idea. I've always liked Guess Who as a game. Like when I was a kid, like Guess Who was like really fun. Like just the base like normal Guess Who game, and now you get to like throw in the Netrunner component to it, and like you get to come up with like these fun questions about Netrunner that you can turn into a Guess Who strategy. So that was really fun. So I saw this picture and I was like, yeah, shout out to Shuga for bringing that. Yeah, played Guess Who was a very good time. Oh, I realize my face is covering this. There you go. Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Okay, we're gonna click through the photos again. So this is the Guess Who. Netrunner Guess Who World Championship. Yes. And then this was the game against Chris. Again, I'll come back to this one. And then the photo with me, Brandon, and Peter. And of course, the group photo at the end. Dear, how's it going? Netrunner Guess Who was fire. Yeah, Dear, this is another thing I should shout out. Your presence has reminded me about this. I think, Dear, you were the one who brought the like Netrunner like chess puzzles kind of thing, where you had like those things on the wall, and it was like, here's the situation, what's the least number of credits you can use to get into this server, or like the most amount of money you can get off a YDL or something. So the reason I'm not totally clear is because I was like, I only looked at this after like on Sunday, at the end of the tournament, and I was like, I want to play Guess Who because that's present. And then I took a picture of those things that were on the wall of those puzzles. So there's pictures of those puzzles on my phone that I intend to look at and solve at some point. But I haven't actually gotten around to that. I'll probably do that with Fa at some point. So that is something that I plan to do, and I love that. That's something that I've thought about doing as well, just like making Netrunner like chess puzzles. Yeah, I love that. So yeah, I'm gonna try those out at some point, and then who knows, maybe that'll get us some ideas going, and we'll continue those on. You want Brandon to hold you like a baby here. Yeah, 1, 2, and 4 are solvable as normal. Alex and Augustus completely tore question 3 apart. Okay. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. I'll take a look at those, and I'll let you know. I think they got it to 140 something axes. Okay, let me write that down. 140, question 3. Okay. That's funny. All right. So yeah, that's kind of like the peripheral stuff to the event. Somebody brought a crokinole board as well. So I was learning crokinole at the very, very end of Sunday. I was playing crokinole, learning what that was, learning the rules. That was really interesting. When it was first explained to me, it was like, this seems very complicated. But then once I got going, I was like, okay, this is actually kind of easy to understand. And it was quite fun. It was very satisfying when you hit some shots in crokinole. And I remember one Worlds, like, I remember Dan D'Eugenio playing crokinole being a thing, like being a Netrunner thing. So like Dan playing crokinole at a Netrunner event. Like I remember that being a thing. So I was like, that's the game. So I was like, I had to learn. Yeah, I thought you were Canadian. I didn't know it was a Canadian thing. I had no idea. But Google's Google tells me it is. It's just radial curling. Big croak phase in ANR history. Oh, yeah? Yeah, it was fun. It was very fun. Okay. Yeah, okay. Let's get into things. Let's get into things. So, let's talk about the event. Let's talk about my decks first, I guess. So I brought BTL. This is my corp. It was very similar to last year's corp. Some key differences are the Logjam replaces Pharaohs. This is a big deal because Logjam is 3 subs that end the run. So it's 1 extra counter to break with Botulus, and it can't be boomeranged. Very, very big deal. It makes those matchups much, much better. You also cut the Akets. The Aket is just like a little slow for me. You'd rather just like get advancement tokens on Treeland and on a Logjam. And you do get value off Aket when the runner runs through it, but ideally the runner's not running through your ice a ton anyways. So, yeah, I think getting over the hump of Aket is actually not needed in this deck was like a very, very big quality of life improvement. Because I felt like before playing Aket and drawing them and then trying to work with Aket was actually a hindrance to the deck's tempo. The other thing was we went down to 44 cards. You play 3 SDS, 3 Basalt Spire, so the deck is like the deck is theoretically faster because you don't have Aket and you also have a 3rd Mesta Chesvo. So in the matchups where you have to rush, you can rush theoretically a little bit more consistently with the Clearinghouse rather than having 49 cards. You also have the 1 Colossus. 1 Colossus is really good. It's a sentry that gets put on non-HQ servers, so the runner doesn't only have to respect sentries on HQ. Of course, you can put Winchesters on other servers, but you're incentivized not to. And then Colossus also scales on strength per advancement counter, which means that you can outscale stuff like Echelon, which is a big deal. Chessplus ID is amazing. I'd love to see those. Yeah, I've been like thinking about that. It's hard to like get inspiration for it, I feel. But yeah. Why do you think no one else plays this? That's a great question. No one else plays this. Oh, okay. Actually, I actually have a decent answer to this. Let me finish the chat though. The Colossus is surprising. I thought everyone stopped slogging those. The Colossus scaling on strength actually is kind of important. It's like Logjam and Treeline scales on strength, and then Colossus scales on strength. So you can like tax a sentry. Mainly Echelon. Like Echelon with like Turbine, you can get that pretty taxing. It's also just like it's good on the innermost of R&D. Like is usually where you put it is in the innermost position of R&D. Is the sound panning to the left for anyone else? Ooh, okay. This is good. Like, yeah, let me know if there's sound issues, so I've got the microphone here, and usually I like don't. Sometimes I use my microphone and sometimes I don't. So it should sound like I'm to the left of the microphone, but like maybe I can move over a little bit and maybe that makes a difference. Why do I think no one else plays this? So the deck is actually kind of hard to play, in the sense that like you can't if things go wrong. So let's say you're playing like PD, right? If something goes wrong and you need to just like make a play happen. Sometimes in PD, that means like, we're gonna throw an agenda in the remote and advance it. Or we're going to put an agenda in the remote and not advance it. Even though I know the runner can get in, but we're gonna hope that they don't run because like, things are threatening. Like, in PD, your primary game plan is, we're gonna try to build a board while scoring. But if that doesn't work, you can kind of flex into other things. This deck is like, it can't flex into too much. Like, This deck is trying to make a taxing remote with logjam, and trying to make a taxing, ideally R&D, with like another logjam. And then we're trying to get ice on all our servers and then start biovaulting. And if you're not able to do that first part where you make taxing servers, then like biovault is a dead card, because biovault is only as good as the taxing server that it's on. But also, if your opponent is Pinhole, biovault is only as good as your least taxing server. And also your agenda suite, like 653s is not an agenda suite that you can just rush with. So the deck inherently is actually not as flexible as something like PD or as Asa or as like Egg Infusion Glacier, for example. Whereas like Egg Infusion Glacier can adapt to a lot of different game plans. So this deck really forces you to like do your thing. And the plays that you get to make are plays where like, when do you change the thing in the remote? Like, when do you keep the wall-to-wall in there? When do you change it for a clearinghouse? Change it for an NGO front? Change it for a Basalt Spire, an SDS? How do you position your ice? Where do you think your opponent's going to run? Which servers do you think are the weakest? And what's the best way to position your ice? That's what this deck is requiring you to do. I will say that I came into this tournament from an overall meta perspective. I came into this tournament expecting there to be a lot more Anarch, and there was a lot more Lat instead. And like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised that there was a lot of Lat. Like, obviously there was going to be a good amount of Lat, but I was expecting there to be a lot of like crew Anarchs. So whether that's out of Hashiko, out of Freedom, maybe the Sebastiao, although I don't know, mainly out of Hashiko and Freedom. And there was like some of that, but I was expecting to see a lot more of that, and I think this deck was really targeted to beat that. Because what this deck can do is this deck can play defensively. So against decks that are just trying to attack you with Leech and Crew, like if you get Mesta Chesfo and Winchester protecting your centrals, like if they don't get Leech counters, they can't win, because they just have 3 double charms to trash 3 pieces of ice, and then their crews can't do anything without Leech, because all your ice is 4 strength. So they'd have to like double crew and clear 2 tags or something like that. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna catch up on chat, because yeah. Was Peter H psyoping me when I tried to build BTL 2 months ago and was told to cut Colossus and slot a Ket, and also that the archetype was bad? Peter H did not know I was playing this until the day of the tournament. Until Saturday morning. Like, I had not spoken to Peter H. Like, this was just, the only people who knew was me and Fa. And the morning of Saturday, I like walked up to Peter and I was like, hey, I got something that's going to make you really happy. And then I showed him this deck list. Dumb question, perhaps? No, no questions are dumb. Like, please ask. If you're wondering it, I'm sure somebody else is as well. Why Colossus, Innermost, and R&D? Like, I get that ETR is more useful elsewhere, perhaps, but Innermost. So a lot of the times, runner decks have ways of getting through the outermost ice. Through some kind of cheat. So that's like Bankar, Inside Job. Lat has one too, I feel. Bankar and Inside Job are the two. I mean, like, mainly it's an Anarch thing. So, yeah, like usually it's like Bankar mainly. So, and like Innermost and R&D is like taxing enough. Like, you just want your server to be taxing. It doesn't necessarily need to end the run, because with only 6 agendas, like if the runner is running through your Colossus to like, and letting it fire to access a card or 2, like that's okay. And also you have end the run effects like your 1 border control and your 3 biovaults if you really need to. Yeah, so you just like putting your important ice on the inside is where it's least likely to be cheated through. And your Colossus will get up to, it'll easily get up to like, well, once you install single advance, it's at 5 strength, which is already like 2 boosts for Revolver. And then like full rig Echelon Turbine gets it to 5 strength, and you just got to advance it once, and now it costs Echelon 5. When I started playing Netrunner, it was mostly a Rush meta. Now I feel like I don't know how to play Glacier since I learned so much playing Rush. Yeah, there's like a lot of Rush. I mean, like I don't, like I'm sharing all of this and I don't know how applicable it's going to be, because obviously there's a very big rotation coming up. So we'll see how that goes. I expect, like, I don't know what the new cards are going to be at all. But like, I expect the meta to slow down because there's a lot of really fast cards that are leaving. But it'll be very interesting. What's the ratio on times where you installed and res Treeline versus expanding over advancements? That's an excellent question. You actually, it's about 50-50. It's about 50-50. So because of Logjam wants you to have one of each type in the bin. So if you don't have an agenda, that's asset, operation, upgrade, and ice, and that gives you 5 advancement tokens. So usually your first copy of of Treeline, if you drew a Logjam, your first Logjam usually goes on the remote. You single advance it with BTL because that's clicking for a credit. And then your first Treeline usually gets expended to advance the Logjam, because that's a click and a credit for 3 counters, and then 1 more counter because it's a face-up ice and archives. Usually that's what happens. Especially because, like, usually people who play, like, usually barrier breaking solutions right now are all, like, pretty high strength. So, like, Propeller, like, Cleaver Turbine, those are the 2 that come to mind. You usually rather have 1 big barrier than 2 mid-sized barriers, most of the time. But against Anarchs, you usually install the Logjam, the tree line, because like against Anarchs is about mid-range ice count. So the Anarchs are trying to trash your ice, and if all of your ice is just 4 or 5 strength, that's like the most annoying number. And you don't want to have like a 8-9 strength ice, because they can like Devil Charm crew that down, unless you really get it up there. Why'd we kill Pharos? Yeah, so I mentioned that at the start. But yeah, we killed Pharos because Logjam is better than Pharos, because it has 3 on the runs, and that's really significant because it costs Botulus an extra counter, and it can't be boomeranged. There are times where you're like, man, this would be better as Pharos, because if you get 3 advancement on Pharos, that's 10 strength, and if you get 3 advancement on Logjam and have the full 4 cards in the bin, that's only 8 strength. But again, that extra subroutine matters a lot. It really locks down the Crim matchup, and then it is a much better against Botulus. And then Aket is just slow. Aket was always like not ideal to me, but just because like the runner's ideally not running through your servers a ton. So usually what the runner wants to do is they want to make 1 or 2 like high impact runs, and they want to make really surgical runs. And the Aket's ability is not good enough if it's only going to trigger like once or twice, because you have to advance it 3 times. And if they have a cleaver and a turbine, that's 5 strength. They get to break it for 1. You get $1. You get an advancement. It's not quite good enough. SMC is outermost tech sorta. Encoded question: what was your favorite alt you played in the deck? My favorite alt is Phil. I'm so happy you're the one who asked that question, because my favorite alt probably in the game. My favorite alt probably in the game is the full art NGO fronts. I have a playset of the FFG full art NGO fronts. This was a like a game night kit where they gave, like, FFG was great at giving you not non playsets of cards, and the FFG game night kit was 3. They gave you 3 copies total in the kit. They gave you 3 full art NGO fronts, and it was intended that. It was intended that first place gets 1, second place gets 1, and third place gets 1, or something like that, which is ridiculous. And I went to Calgary on a random weekend. My family was like, we randomly went to Calgary that weekend, and Calgary, Phil, you ran this kit that tournament, and I showed up and played at the Sentry Box for this kit. And I remember we played like 4 or 5 rounds of double-sided Swiss, and I went into the last round in like 5th place out of 10 or something. 5th place out of 8 or 5th place out of 10. And I was like, okay, I need to sweep. This table needs to split. This other table needs to split. And this other table needs to have a sweep happen in this way. And if that happens, I can tie for first, and my SOS can maybe get me to first place. And that's exactly what happened. All of those things happened. SOS came out for me. And I think you were the one who was like, we're going to give all 3 NGOs to first place because that makes more sense. So like, that's how I got these. And that's probably my favorite alt art. What would you change if I could have played KPIs? I just cut government subsidy. KPIs is like great value. So is Trojan Horse. Trojan Horse is great value too. Sorry, I'm just like answering 2 different questions now because I have it so my chat's like going to go away if I don't read it in time. Because I haven't opened my restream thing, so I should probably do that. Yeah, I definitely cut the 2 gov subs for 2 KPIs. Maybe and then something else. Do you ever triple advance Hordem, or is it just there because you need more copies of Message Chessfo? You usually don't triple advance Hordem, like unless you're specifically against like a turtle deck like a turtle anarch deck that clearly can't get in. Hordem's like there to like block Bankar, and it's there to just throw on archives because you want to kind of block off dirty laundry value. You want to kind of block off pinhole threading early. So early pinholes and early dirty laundries are like excellently blocked off by a Hordem on archives. Yeah, that's it. Like if your opponent has Buzzsaw Turbine installed, that sucks. But if they have Buzzsaw Leech, like a lot of times you actually can just block them out of Leech counters entirely, and then the Hordem at 4 strength with like a gain of credit and the run sub is actually just fine. Yeah, so the Hordem's like a decent ice. And it's just like it as a base piece of ice, like you can't get through it in an efficient way. Whereas like a Ket, for example, if you don't advance it, like just the cleaver install can get through that for a credit. The other neat thing about not playing a Ket is like a Ket starts at 2 strength, which is 1 boost off of Propeller. But every other ice right here, like border control doesn't really count. So I have 3 log jams, 3 tree lines. And as long as those are at 5 strength, Propeller only gets through it once. And then you throw in like Stone Ship and turbine complications, and you can figure it out and adapt from there. That's how they sold more G&Ks, yeah. Shoutouts to Yads, who gave me all 3 when I won them. Learn from the best. Yeah. The oh man, the NGO fronts are really, really nice. Yeah, I mean, so if you don't know what this is the card that was announced. This is my champ card that's coming out in the next set. And this was the question about KPIs is how would I put this card in the deck? And this card just gains you. This card is like a hedge fund's worth of value if there's 2 ice on a server. So because you install a piece of ice. You save $2 on the install cost, and then let's say you like gain 2 credits, right? So that's like 5 things that are typically worth a click, and then it costs you 1 to play, so it's like 4 things. So it's like a net 4 things, and then it's also click compression. But let's just like forget about click compression for a second. So that's like if you have 2 ice on a server and you're installing a 3rd ice, that's a bit better than a hedge fund because it's click compression. And then you have like the extra utility of you can place an advancement token, On an installed card, you can draw a card and shuffle a card from HQ into R&D, which would be very useful in this deck. So actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you'd probably just cut this Drudge Work. And you would go cut the 2 Gov Sub, cut a Drudge Work, and you play 3 KPIs. But the Drudge Work's actually, like, it's actually quite good. But that's definitely what you do. Because then you can use the KPIs to slowly put the 3-pointers back if you need to. And there's just like having the agenda control spread out across 3 operations is much better than having one Drudge Work. Just you can better control your agendas. And controlling agenda flow is very key in this deck. So yeah, that's my corp. Things are kind of the same from last year. The Basalt Spire is really, really good. It's such an upgrade. Like again, I was expecting a lot more Ice Destruction Anarch than we actually saw. So like in a sense, like I thought there was going to be a lot more than there was. It turned out that didn't really matter at the end of the day. In terms of my results, but the Basalt Spire lets you pick up a piece of ice that was trashed. It lets you pick up Biovaults in the Biovault matchups. So like against like the deep dive decks, the ones who are like setting up, which I was expecting to be most of them, which was also a little bit of a misread, but all of the runner decks that are trying to deep dive and they're trying to set up like their ability to deep dive gets countered by Biovault. So games can turn into a little bit of a Biovault like utility game where it's like, I'm going to advance my Biovault and you're going to pinhole it. And I'm going to advance my Biovault and you're going to like run it when it's cheap. And I'm going to advance your Biovault, you're going to pinhole it. And maybe you're going to like run HQ and trash a Biovault on an access or something like that. And like Basalt Spire, I can just like feed you a Basalt Spire or I could score it and I can just pick up Biovaults back. So that's really strong. You can pick up clearinghouses back that you discarded early because like it wasn't the right time. And you just needed to get cards. Basalt Spire, really, really great upgrade over Send a Message in this deck. And then the last thing was just like Chrysium Grid and Mavris. You want to have 5 upgrades because of Logjam. But like Chrysium Grid's also just really good. It blocks off a lot of stuff. Like Deep Dive being one of them, Trick Shot being another one. It blocks off like HQ value, so like DJ Steve. It blocks off leech counters. Like all that stuff is really, really good. And also, if nothing else, every deck plays Pinhole, so you can just throw the Chrysium Grid, like install it on archives, and they have to like go and break through your Whoredom that's there, pay 5 to trash the Chrysium Grid before they Pinhole. Otherwise, they're just going to lose their Pinhole. So that's also a really cute use of Chrysium Grid as well. And then, of course, we've cut a Spin Doctor for Mavris. The Drudge Work taking the place of the 3rd Spin Doctor, which was really nice. The Drudge Work is actually decent econ. Like, you spend a click and 2 to install, and you spend 3 clicks clicking it. You get 3 agendas back in, you gain 9 credits. It's actually really good econ. But then the 1 influence on the Spin Doctor becoming a Mavris. Again, I expected a lot of Ice Destruction Anarch. The Mavris was necessary for that matchup. Yeah, that's basically it. Mavris is there for the Ice Destruction Anarch matchup. I was expecting a lot of that. This was tech for it. And again, it's also an upgrade, which is nice for the Logjam. Do you feel losing out of cut by R&D betraying you feels worse or better than losing a match that got played through? I don't know. I don't know. They each have their like it probably, like, in a way, in the sense of like balance of luck, it feels better the way that things happened, because I feel like I have been lucky in a lot of situations, and then being clearly unlucky in another like important situation, kind of like it feels like things have not balanced. Like I'm still, like, if you take all of my Netrunner games, like even if you just take like all of the high importance, like in terms of tournament placement Netrunner games, like my luck versus unlucky is still like way above average. So like this has brought it down a little bit, but it's still way up there. So like I don't know, like I in a way like I had it coming cuz like I've had a lot of really really lucky moments in the last 2 years. Like winning the last 2 worlds. But this year though, I'll talk about this once I get into talking about the tournament and stuff, but like this year was like the games were all really hard. And the competition was all really, really high. And I could, yeah, like I think like in terms of like people who were preparing and people who were like really competing, like there was a ton of people who were preparing a lot and brought some really, really strong decks, that made this year's Worlds like particularly difficult. Yeah, I'll talk about that once I get into the tournament, but it was something. I thought the Spires were going to be to reuse Treeline expense, but then I saw you pull back a Biovault and barfed a little inside. Yeah. You just pick up Biovaults. What's your theory for why there was less crew than expected? That's a great question. XDG, as somebody in the largest testing group, please let us know. Yeah, I was expecting a lot more Ice Destruction Hoshiko. Like, I honestly, I don't know why there was less than expected, because, like, so personally, and I'll talk about my runner after, like, shortly, but personally, I was always going to play Lat. I was always going to play Lat, because that deck is, like, it is just so me. Like I feel like I work really well with that deck. I understand the deck really well, and I do really well with it. So what runner I was going to play was never something that I considered, but what runner other people are going to play is obviously something that's on top of my mind. And I think playing Ice Destruction Anarch just makes a lot of sense. I think, like, if you didn't know that this BTL existed, right? Ice Destruction Anarch is like, it's good against Egg Infusion. I think Ice Destruction Anarch is good against Egg Infusion. And like, it's good against like PD and ASA, and there was a ton of those. So I don't know. I think Ice Destruction Anarch would have been really good. Like, Brandon obviously did really well with it. But it just seemed like a lot of the other major major players in major testing groups like decided to play Shaper. Does the Daily Quest KPI Sokka work for one of the corps, or is he more of an independent consultant? I think so. The guy that's in Daily Quest, the guy that's in Daily Quest is like an NBN executive, and then like was poached by Wayland, and that's why he's got like the same like vest on. So Wayland, like, basically, I haven't quite worked out like why exactly this person is now with Wayland, but like we've now moved over to Wayland, and we're presenting to the Wayland board about KPIs, and it's like the person has experience with how like NBN works, right? XCG says we expect a lot of crew as well. Yeah, everyone realized that was just the best runner. One losing matchup in the Asa deck that Zinchling attack and Nickard brought. Yeah, and I'll talk about that too. But that Asa deck was like amazing to see, and it was really, really good. Our egg was teched with an eye to the crew matchup. Yeah, but it's still hard. Like, you gotta find your Mavericks. Like, you gotta stop. Like, I can trash key ice and like get leech counters. Like, I feel like that's still a really hard matchup for the egg. Crew didn't have a win con that supported it. Poimu twinning is really awkward when the most important install is a connection. Tag Me and Manuel had a just trash crew problem. And Stargate means you can't really run real breakers. Yep, I see that. The only way to play is loss. is loss con. Don't know what loss con means. Or credit denial, which is a really good way to tire yourself out for the tournament. I see. Okay. Will and MBN name a more iconic duo? Well, maybe the executive will make the rounds to the other decks. A deck that doesn't have any strong multi-access to close games. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I see. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's disappointing to me. But see, the thing is, like, maybe you could like argue that I could have played, like, I could have like tested it more and then came to that conclusion myself. But the thing is, like, a lot of the times when I come to a conclusion, it doesn't mean like everybody else is going to come to that conclusion. So like, it just didn't seem like worth my time to figure out, like, to like test it. Because I knew that other people were testing it, and I'm just like, I know that other people are testing it, and I'm just gonna like hope that they're doing well with it. Because this deck is gonna walk all over it. And that was kind of the idea. Yeah, I mean, like, obviously I played a lot of test games where I played like Ice Destruction Anarch against this deck. But like at the end of the day, like, especially a deck that's like Botulus, Crew, like maybe not even Botulus, but like Crew, Devil Charm, Turtle, no real breakers is not a deck I would play. Cause like I just like enjoy playing Reg Netrunner, where like my deck can be more flexible. Whereas like the Ice Destruction Anarchs are like, the success of that deck depends on their ability to get into centrals and to get virus counters. And I just naturally don't like that kind of playstyle. And I enjoy a game a lot more where like the thing that I'm doing isn't reliant on my ability to do something specific. I think if Worlds is in early October, 50% of bears take Hosh. Oh, yeah? Dang, we were just a little too late. So why not play Egg Infusion? Sorry if I missed that. Yeah, because Egg Infusion... Patrick getting in here. Yeah, Egg Infusion... That's why I didn't play Egg Infusion, because Egg Infusion's not good into Kuro Hoshiko. It's just like, Egg Infusion relies on having a couple like key ice, and it's just... It's a little too fragile. Like, a lot of the times when you play Egg... Even if you're not sitting across from Crew Hosh, you realize that you have a certain board state where like your whole board and your whole game plan rests on this brand that you have on this remote. And you look at your board and you're like my best line of winning the game right now is jamming stuff behind this remote, which consists of like a brand and an unres dice. And if my opponent, regardless of what my opponent is, like, if my opponent installed Devil Charm and installed Crew, like, I just can't win this game. So your board is actually like threatening, but is very fragile to a key ice getting trashed. The other thing about not playing Egg Infusion is this is a major thing on the corp side, is when you're going into a large event and you want to do well, like, I think playing a new corp deck has a lot of benefits. Playing an unknown corp deck has a lot of benefits, because like corp has all the information, people don't know what you're doing. Like, if I showed up with Egg and like the Egg better be really good for me to show up with a known deck where like that I've been playing for the whole season, and to continue doing well with it, because I think like I'm expecting people to have practiced against it, to like have tech or like have some kind of game plan against it, and like when people play against me, it'll just be a little bit too comfortable. Obviously this BTL deck is like similar to last year, but you still have to figure that out. There's a lot of new cards that came into BTL that could come into BTL that are really good, like Charlotte, for example. So like early in the game, like I could install Advanced NGO Front and put an ice in front of it, and like you might reasonably go and pinhole that if you think I'm playing Charlotte. What would you play instead if you expected lat? I think honestly, like, I think I would just like have practiced more against it. And I still would have played the same deck. Cause like, yeah, like there's something really appealing to playing something that's new. So I think if I expected as much lat as I did, I would have just shifted my practice towards that a lot more. I practiced a ton against Ice Destruction Anarch, compared to lat. I mean, like, I practiced against everything, but like my practice focused a lot more on Ice Destruction Anarch than it did against lat. And that actually cost me a little bit, in an interesting way during the tournament that I'll talk about once I talk about the games. But like the way that I theoretically, conceptually approached the lat matchup was wrong going into the tournament. And then I, like, in the game against Saf and in the game against Rotom, on day 2, like, I kind of like worked that out. I saw my photo of the Beanstalk lift. That's amazing. Yeah, I like that. Deciding you just didn't want Charlotte. So the thing is, like, Charlotte like competes with wall to wall. And it's like that's the problem with Charlotte. So like Charlotte, like the five credit econ card, like Charlotte is great. And if Charlotte is in faction, you would play it. But the problem is Charlotte is influence, and it competes for the same slot as wall to wall. Wall to wall is worse than Charlotte, but wall to wall is good enough. Like, okay, so if Charlotte is here and wall to wall is here, right? By deciding to play Charlotte over wall to wall, you're gaining this much, okay, in terms of like a value difference. But then you have to like cut Messna Chesfo for Hordem, which is like a huge difference, right? Or you have to cut Biovault for like nothing replaces Biovault. So just like the value difference in cutting influence is just not worth it, to replace your wall to walls with Charlotte. Like, wall to wall is like more than good enough, compared to what Charlotte is actually doing for you. My thoughts on Charlotte in Standard in generally. I personally have trouble with having to spend 2 cards, and Readvancer feels too against the glaciary feel. I mean, Charlotte needs to be in very specific decks. Like, obviously, like, unless you're on Lacosta, spending a click to advance the Charlotte and then also drawing a card with Charlotte, like, compresses your actions quite a bit, because you have to spend a click to advance and then you're drawing an extra card. So, like, you're gonna draw a ton of cards, basically. I toyed around with a lot of different BTLs, and I'll show those actually. But yeah, Charlotte needs to be in a very specific deck. Like, you have to either like be playing Lacosta Grid out of Jinteki, or you need to have like a good plan of like what you're going to do with a bunch of cards. And in BTL specifically, like, you're spending like, it gets awkward because you're spending a click to advance, which means that every turn, if you want to keep your Charlotte advanced, you only have 2 clicks every turn. And you're also drawing 2 cards at the start of your turn. So unless you're going to discard cards, like, you either got to be like playing Hansi Review or Subliminal, or you need to be like getting 2 cards out of your hand every turn. And sometimes you just want to like advance Biovaults, or you want to get like a 2nd or 3rd advancement on your Colossus or on your Logjam, or you want to like trash a resource because your opponent is tagged for some reason. Like, you like the less bogged down you are on like certain actions being required of you, the more flexible your deck can be, and that's like just naturally a bit better. May I ask about thoughts on MCA Asa versus Hollow Asa against the field and against Lat? Well, MCA Asa was built to beat Lat. It was built to beat like deep dive decks, and boy was it good. I'll talk about that a ton once I talk about the matchups. So I'll save my elaboration on that, and I'll also talk about Hollow Man Asa because I played against Jai on that as well. So I'll get to that in a bit. Good afternoon. Looking forward to hearing the recap. Hey, Zinchling, Chris, how you doing? It's good to see you. It's like, yeah, such a pleasure to play against you last weekend, as usual. Yeah. Embla sad in a corner but true. Is Biovault how you solve Essa as well? Biovault Essa like yeah, Biovault is good against Essa. But like Essa also just has problems breaking code gates. So and further to your question about why we're playing Hordem, Essa is actually a big reason why we're playing 2 Hordem instead of just 1. Because Essa breaks barriers well. So we really wanted a 5th code gate. So against Essa, you want to find your 3 Mess and Chest foes, your 2 Hordems. Like you want to find as many code gates as you can. And Essa will actually have a problem breaking those code gates. And that's a big deal. And then of course, like Biovault can get rid of like key run events. And you're locking them out of leech counters if they're playing leech. Usually Essa's not playing leech, they're playing like Botulus. And you can just tax that. Like you just have like a sheer number of ice. And also Essa can't get into your HQ if you draw enough Winchesters, because like Winchester, Colossus, Hordem, Mess, and Chester are just like a nightmare for Essa to break. Was Hammer ever consideration, especially since Kit existed? No, Hammer was, I mean, like I considered every card that is in the card pool, technically, but no, Hammer was never close to being in the list. Colossus is just, like, the fact that Colossus can scale on strength is just a lot better. Hammer can get broken. Like, Hammer is like a thing that kind of like beats, it beats tricks, right? But we don't, but like it beats like Botulus, or it beats like, I don't know, Kit, as you're saying. But like you can beat those decks just like playing solidly and just like getting your ice up in positions where you need it. And it's interesting you mentioned this because you're saying so Kit is the biggest flop of Worlds. Like that's surprising to me actually. Kit is like, I guess is like bad against the NVN decks, but it's like still good against PD. It's good against Asa. So I'm surprised that like I think it's just that like a lot of the top players didn't bring Kit. And I don't think it's actually just an issue with Kit as a deck. Like I think a lot of top players decided to play other decks. And that's why Kit didn't do very well. And it's not actually anything to do with the deck. I will talk about the Kit matchup, because I did see some comments on stream that was like, I'm surprised Sokka brought this because Kit is really popular. This deck is great against Kit, actually. Kit can boost strength well, yes, because Lobby boosts 1 for 2 strength. But Kit plays 2 programs. So like if you draw your Trojan horse and they like in the early game spend a bunch of money installing their program, playing Spark or whatever, and making an untimely run, you can just Trojan horse their Lobby or their Orca. And if they don't do that, then you can like make a remote, and they have to like go and run through that. Maybe there's a Biovault there, maybe there isn't. But you just like you like shuffle your Basalt Spires away, and you jam your SDSs. And every time they access an SDS, they can't just give it to you, because if you score it, you trash a program. So they have to steal it, and they have to trash a program. And then they have to compile the program back, or test run it. And then the program's going to go away. And then they have to install it again. Again, Trojan Horse looming. More SDSs looming. Like, it's actually a good matchup for you. The only thing you need to be very careful about is that Kit plays Mad Dash. So you need to like protect your 5/3s, which basically means you need to put a border. You need to find your border control, and you need to put on R&D, and that's it. Like Mad Dash is always going on R&D. Like they've got their cataloger, they've got their burner. So Mad Dash is always going on R&D, and if they like sniff out an agenda on a remote and like Mad Dash the remote, good on you. But I have so many advanceable cards in this deck that like that shouldn't happen. We just boost that logjam. No Fractor wants to break an X strength barrier. Oh yeah, like man, we got a round with like 2 13 strength logjams, and that was really, really good. Ooh, sorry. Just gotta recover a little bit. And I'm gonna try to log into my Restream chat so that I can. There we go. Okay, very nice. Okay, we've logged into our Restream chat. So why is... Sorry, just give me 1 second. Settings. No, why is the chat not working? Analytics. Sorry, I'm gonna try to like connect my chat. Messages. No, okay, it's fine. It's fine. It really is just fine. Appearance. Discord filtering about. Why is this not working? Okay, nope, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, yeah. This world does seem hard to decouple strong players' choices from what is good. Yeah, I mean, there's like, I think somebody on stream said this, but like, and anybody who made day 2, like I would not have been surprised for like there was so many people, so many great candidates to make the cut, and there were so many good candidates to win the tournament. Like that, like it could have been anybody. Like there were so many like really good players playing really good decks, and like a lot of like there was so much heartbreak that I saw at the end of day 1, and at the end of Swiss. Like very, very competitive. The more rounds there are, the harder it is for inconsistent decks to overcome mean reversion. No Jeff P is good. Relive your trauma testing kit. This is funny. Okay, in what was it? In the ShadowNet episode, where like I think like oh, I guess this wasn't about Kit, but Eric said something like what do you think about Crim? Like Sable's really good, and like Brandon's like you're an SDS score away from a natural disaster. that's Kit as well. Kit and Crim are kind of in the same boat for that. Is there much to say about your lat list outside of changes to tech cards? Yeah, even the players are just barely edged out of day 1. Yeah, like there's so many really good players. Okay, I will talk about lat. Let me show you very quickly about the other BTL decks that I tried. So, and I've tried a ton of BTL, because when Logjam came out and when Charlotte came out, I was like, okay, we're gonna try this in the background. And really, what happened was I decided that I was gonna try this, and I think it was like I think it's really good. But World Tree Arasana was just like a little too good. It sets up Turbine really quickly. So I did hide this. Like this deck in particular, but BTL as a whole was like something that was like really on my personal radar of like a deck that I think is good that I decided to not play because Egg Infusion was found. Egg Infusion was doing me well. I don't need to do anything else. So I didn't want to show this. So like, that's why I was always kind of like leaning towards playing this at Worlds, because like this was like a pocket deck that I had kept hidden away since the release of the set, really. Obviously there were a lot of changes and a lot of like revisions and edits that I made along the way, but like the overall idea of a BTL like this was something that was well on my mind like months ago. So other copies of BTL that I tried. There was this one. This one is like the 2 copies of Hollow Man instead of Biovault. This deck's very jammy, so it's got like a 9 agenda suite with 1 Above the Law, 3 Eminent Domain, 2 Atlas, 3 SDS. It's got the 2 NGO fronts. It's got an Audacity, 2 Isaacs, 2 Hollow Men. This deck's like trying to go a lot faster. Yeah, and it's like this deck is like really threatening because you have a ton of agendas. So you just like put a Message Chestful on a remote, advance it once, like put something in there. Like, is it an Atlas? Is it an Eminent Domain? Is it an Above the Law? Is it Wall to Wall? Is it Rashida? Is it an Isaac? And then like Hollow Man being an upgrade, like Hollow Man can just like never advance an SDS. It can get you Atlas counters. It can score a 3-1 or a 3-2 and then put the next thing in there. Like, this deck can go really fast and, like, as the title suggests, built to make you run. And then the next one was a little bit more of a condensed agenda suite, a little similar setup with, like, Hollow Man, Isaac, mostly the same cards, except we now have 8 agendas, and we're playing 2 Basalt, 3 SDS, 3 Eminent Domain. This is a very attractive agenda suite. Like, it's just, like, quite clean. You can score out to 7 in, like, a very clear way. Scoring Eminent Domain and getting Archer is really appealing. Getting Colossus, or usually it's just Archer. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, is there anything else? Yeah, okay, and then there was this one, which is just, like, this is just, like, really a jammy deck. We're trying Charlotte, and we're just, like, trying to score as fast as possible. This deck's playing 3 Trojan Horses, because I'm like, we're gonna, like, go as hard as possible. Like, jam agendas, jam Charlotte if I don't have agendas, and every time you run, you're gonna run through, like, a piece of ice. It's gonna be taxing. We're gonna Trojan Horse your breaker, and go again. And you can see the dates on this, like, April of last year. So that was that. There's also this at the very, very start of the meta on March 19th, March 20th. And you'll see this. Uh-oh. Okay, have I missed some chat already? Oh, it's here. Oh, it's working. Yes. Okay. Hey, Kat. It's good to see you. I don't know how people brought Crim knowing Egg would be popular. Yeah, that's like... But Egg is like... Like, I guess you're just expecting that you might be able to dodge the Egg. Is somewhat reasonable. What deck did I think you were going to be on? I was hoping you'd be on Crew Hoshiko. And then on Corp side, I have no idea. But yeah, I was hoping you'd be on Crew Hoshiko. Were you worried about Hush Ari? I guess there were like less than 10 people that even look at that as a deck. Yeah, so I wasn't worried about it. Like I brought BTL into Worlds last year, where like Ari was like the second or third rage. This year it's like, nah. Like if I could dodge it last year, like we could dodge it this year. Is 9 points the real goal? Genuinely? What do you mean? For the deck that I brought, was like, we're trying to clearinghouse. But sometimes you score out. Isaac is clunky. So my original list with the one copy of, with Chrysium Grid, this used to be an Isaac. And Isaac was like quite good sometimes. Like, boosting things by +2 strength is actually quite good. Sometimes the advancement counter is, like, convenient. But then, like, Chrysium was just better. Like, higher trash costs, deals with a different range of things, but also deals with things. So, it was Isaac. This Chrysium Grid was an Isaac for the longest time. Surprised this deck isn't on one Archer for the Eminent. Oh, it is. I've tried very similar 3-pointers Eminent list. You never said hello, so... Oh, no! Did I miss something? Hi! Sorry, Alec. I hate Isaac so much, I hope William gets a real defensive upgrade. Yeah, it's like... Yeah, Chrysium's good. It's a tech card. Fun card, not the same. Yeah, it's different. Will, you going to retire now? No, we're not going to retire. We're definitely not retiring. Wenjong, you saw, I hope this is not a deck. I'll show that very briefly. But yeah, so like this is like this is like similar to what you saw Ion Fox playing, and I think Andre was like playing this on stream recently. Yeah, this is also something that I tried like very, very early on in March. And I think like ultimately, like without going in depth in like all of these decks, because that's not really why we're here. Like the deck that I played was just a lot more consistent. And it's just like, yeah, more consistent, more solid. I was like more comfortable with it. And again, like it just runs into less problems. Like these decks can run into like Hermes problems, for example, just like naming something off the top of my head. Like all of the jammy decks can run into Hermes problems. So yeah, it was just like a little bit more teched, in terms of like, it was a lot more flexible. Wenjiang's interested in this. This was a deck back in April, on April 20th. Yeah. That's the list if you were interested in that. We're just like forking people with like a Hollow Man, Punitive, and 5/3s out of Ishuag. So, and as I'm sure that you tried a bunch and ended up on a version that went down to 49. Yeah, that's what this one was. Okay, so let's talk about the runner. Not much to say about the runner compared to the corp. Let me catch up on chat for a second, because you're BTL and don't need to rely on Isaac for the advancement counters. Yeah, exactly. Like the Isaac is just like sometimes saves you a click, but as BTL you're just like a click for a credit is like the first advancement counter. Come to Worlds 2. I can't, unfortunately. I don't actually like. I need to. This is my last semester of like law school classes. And there's like some papers that I need to write. So I don't think I'll have the time. And also I like law school used to give you the whole week off for like fall reading week, like fall break. And you used to get the whole week, and now you're only getting 3 days. So instead of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm only getting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, I still have classes. Now, granted, I don't have classes on Friday usually anyways, but I'll still have class on Thursday, and I have class on Thursday until like late Thursday night. So it'll be unlikely for me to come to what I assume you're referring to as UK Nats. Not retiring until the 3-peat. Exactly. Jemmy deck struggling to crew too. Yeah, exactly. There's just like a lot more things that the runners can do to you if you have a proactive game plan. Whereas like if you have like more of a slower game plan that you can find like more nuanced proactivity in there, it's a little better. And by that I mean like advanced things with wall to wall. Mwanza Punitive. Bring them home, Ishuak. Save me. I'm scared. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want that tech to exist, because it's just like, it was just scary. It's just scary. But like, I found that it was inconsistent, so I like, it wasn't good enough for me, but it's scary. Looking forward to making you play forever. Yeah, exactly. Definitely. I mean, that's definitely the plan. By the way, like when I say like decks are scary, like there are a ton of decks out there that are really good and really scary, but they're just not consistent enough for me. So like that Ishuak deck is an example, or like Tag NBN is an example, where just like I didn't like the consistency of the deck enough, but the deck itself is really scary. I was hoping your card subtype profession was lawyer exec or something. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about that. Yeah, I guess I could have like a subtype in there. That's an interesting idea. So here's the runner deck. So I was on. Let's just go into the deck history for a second. So this was the deck for the longest time. Like maybe about like 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, like since like once I started prepping for Worlds, I quickly realized that Turbine was really good in this deck. Because with a Turbine, your propeller now breaks 1 strength barriers without having to spend a counter, and it can break Brand twice. Because 2 counters gets it to 6 with Turbine. So Turbine was like in my mind, Turbine was the key to beating Egg Infusion, as an example, because you don't get barrier taxed with like your propeller. The other thing is it saves you a ton of money with Revolver. So Revolver being at 3 strength means you break Drafters for free, you break Sysentans for free, and Anansi costs you 2 instead of 4. So it saves you a ton of money there. And like it saves you a little bit of money off Unity, but yeah. So Turbine was a big change. This replaced the Palangi. And that makes sense because it's like Turbine is going to save you propeller counters. It's going to save you money off Revolver. So like there's going to be less of a use for Palangi in this list. So like I think that was a very, very solid change. I love that change. And then we cut the clot for Falsified. This was also another shift towards Egg Infusion. I felt that like the Egg Infusion matchup just needed a little bit of a shoring up, which meant that I needed one more Econ card. And Falsified gives you an additional benefit that you only have 2 pinhole threadings. So like against all of the decks, Egg Infusion, Asa, PD, all of the decks that are playing Void or playing like a key upgrade that you're trying to pinhole, you can Falsify that upgrade. And then you can go pinhole the one that you want to pinhole. Also against Asmari as well, as you can Falsify their upgrade, figure out which one's the dupe side grid, and go and pinhole that. So yeah, it just fits in the deck really, really well. Love the Falsified. That was the only change. And like everything else stayed the same until Friday night. Friday night, Friday was the team tournament, obviously. And all of QTM played Sisyphus Jinteki. And that freaked me out a little bit. Cause like, and I think a lot of people think that like Sisyphus Jinteki beats Revolver. It is certainly better against Revolver, but like the thing was like, I felt that it still wasn't like that consistent. And it like runs into consistency problems. So you can high roll me and you'll win, but like against a large number of games, like I should still be able to win against those decks. But I saw a lot of Sisyphus Jinteki. So I was like, just wanted to make like a slight change towards that, because I was like a little scared that maybe everybody would just show up with Sisyphus Jinteki. Or at least like all of the QTM players will, which is like a big pool of the competitive field. So I decided to cut the Falsified for a build script that just like swap the Falsified for a build script and then swap the Unity for a Buzzsaw. And what that did was the Buzzsaw is like just better than the Unity in almost every situation. But specifically, it is key against Vampy. So, yeah, I was expecting some more like Sisyphus Jintekis. Sisyphus Jintekis play Vampire Nasa, and like the Buzzsaw is just good against Vampire Nasa. So yeah, that was that change. It's just it makes like the presence of Buzzsaw instead of Unity makes the Turbine a little bit more necessary in your rig, which is not ideal. But like I found a lot of games that I was like installing Turbine super early anyways, like trying to SMC trickshot for it as my first program. So I liked it. The Buzzsaw was really good. The build script was really good. The build script like gets you through your deck a little faster. And then all of the good things I said about Falsified are still true, but just like getting through like 2 more cards with your build script and replacing the Buzzsaw with a Unity was like a very, very big quality of life improvement. Okay, a lot of chat to catch up on. Would you say the Kill Thule is scary competitive or old news / solved? The Kill Thule is scary. The Kill Thule to me is not consistent. Because a lot of your like scary stuff is about like the presence of an operation. So like I would not play Kill Thule because it's not consistent for me, because I feel like I would run into a lot of situations where it's like, man, if I had this card and this card, like you would die, but you chose not to play around it and I don't have it, and that would make me a little frustrated. So yeah, Kill Thule is like is definitely scary. There's a lot of things that can just go wrong. Like you can like randomly run into a Hendrik when you're checking for Rashida or stuff like that. Like that's just like scary. It's definitely not like old news or solved, I think. Like I think there's like a best way to play around it, but especially with Lat running around, like it's hard to justify playing a deck like Kill Thule. Yeah. Alex says I take full credit for Turbine. Yes, definitely. Yeah, when I was playing this deck, just like at a Vancouver meetup, Alec was playing Ice Carver in the deck, and Alec was telling me that like Ice Carver is really neat because it like makes your revolver break Size and 10 and Anansi better, and it makes your propeller break the 1 strength barriers better. And I was like, that makes a ton of sense. I really want this Ice Carver now. But as a one-of resource, it just wasn't like, and it costs you 3 influence. Like there's just like too high of a cost. And that was that for a couple days. And I was like, wait a second, like the Turbine is just in faction. It gives you 2 strength. And it does the same thing for Revolver. It makes it better against Size and 10 Anansi and Drafter. And then the propeller breaking the 1 strength barriers and also the Bran for 2 bit counters is like a huge deal. So yeah, that's where that idea comes from. Show up to your local meetups, talk to people. That's a good way to improve your decks. So many tactical blows and blower controls in the meta for Turbine. Yeah. If you're playing Turbine, is there consideration for 1 Echelon, 1 Revolver? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there is. I didn't try it. Like I actually, like personally, I never found that I was running out of like Revolver counters and that Revolver was just saving me money. But like I could see that. It's just like, okay, there was one game where I ran out of Revolver counters, and I'll talk about that when I talk about my games. But like the Revolver is just like, the thing is like you just like, you think about the flow of the cards in your hand, right? In the early game, when you're just trying to like draw cards and play cards and get your lat trigger and be efficient, Revolver is a card that you will just throw on the board. If you don't have a ton of money, maybe you don't want to pay 2 credits, but you definitely don't want to pay 3 for Echelon in that position, right? And like you can install Revolver early and be like, okay, like I might use this, like next time I run, we might like run into a Drafter, run into an Ansel, run into an Anansi, what have you. Whereas like if you draw Echelon, like 50% of the time, the first Sentry Breaker you draw will be Echelon instead of Revolver. And like, man, that just sucks. Unless you have your Turbine down already. So that just feels like a little bit uncomfortable to me. But I can see it being correct because you save 3 influence and you can spend the 3 influence elsewhere. I did not spend the time testing it because I felt that my time was better spent preparing Corp. And one note about preparing Corp is that like one thing about playing the BTL deck and playing like a slow Glaciary deck is that you need to know what you're doing and you need to know what your turns are going to be. So, and I think my best example of this is against Brandon in Swiss, and I'm not. Yeah, like against Brandon in Swiss, I'll get there. Like I played really fast, and you had to, because it's just like time will just run away. Like pass the turn to you, mandatory draw, install an ice, advance something, take a credit, whatever. Like done, go to you. Like my turns. If you watch through that game, like my turns did not take more than 10 seconds. Yeah. That's important. So like getting reps in with a corp, especially if you're playing a slow corp, is something that I was focusing on. I noticed no Palangi. I thought the whole point was to use Revolver to break any type of sub for cheap. That's 6 influence on killers. Yeah, it is. It's true. Yeah, I mean, Yeah, like you can probably cut a revolver and play an echelon. But again, that whole discussion about like I didn't get the chance to test it. I was comfortable with revolver, and like it's just a better flow of your cards in the early game. I wonder if you could import Carmen instead. Oh, that sounds expensive. Why not having a third pinhole instead of falsified? You can have a third pinhole. I can see that. Like, pinhole can get cloggy though. Like, pinhole's a great card. But like, you don't always want it. Yeah. It's just about like finding that balance in your deck. I could see it. You could play a third pinhole instead of build script. But like, build script is like, just drawing 2 more cards is good. Get through your deck. Like, drawing cards is really good. Like you'll see me do that a lot. Is like just like whenever you have like something whenever you have like an extra action or something, like draw cards. Is very, very good. Sure, but you have chips in SMC, so why 2x? It's just like another way of breaking sentries. Yeah. That's, yeah, you're probably right. Like you're probably right. I like originally the reason for 2 revolver is like you just draw it. You like better chance that you naturally draw it, so you don't have to spend 2 credits on SMC. And then you can break like 7 extra barrier subroutines. Because like you have the original revolver, you have 3 simul chips, and then like you have a whole extra revolver, which is like another 7 subs. Which is like a bad argument because you could play echelon and that's like an infinite number of subs for money. So if like the first revolver is what you want early and then like the echelon is what you want later, you just play echelon instead of revolver. You're probably right. And I probably should have done that. Yeah. And then you have to like figure out what you want to do with the influence. If anything. But cleaver instead of propeller could be one. And then we basically like merge our way into what you guys brought, what Snare Bears brought, in terms of lat, where you get your cleaver, and you get your echelon and your revolver. Yeah. Anakin better than Swift. Yes. Anakin better than Swift. Everything that Rotom said in Rotom's runner write-up is exactly what I will say as well. If we go to Rotom's runner write-up, he says, the only other decision point that I can recall is sticking to Anacam over Swift. I think if you want to beat up on decks like PD, Swift makes a fair amount of sense to ease click compression and lean slightly harder into landing deep dive. However, Anacam triggers off more of your events, costs no influence, and gives you more equity into a range of decks that might be trying to kill you. Definitely one to pick based on your meta, but I like Anacam more. Yeah. There's my thoughts on Anacam versus Swift, right there. This version struggles with early Gatekeeper Rush. It does. It does. But the thing is, the deck always struggled into breaking Gatekeeper. Like Unity never wants to break Gatekeeper early in the game anyways. So it's like you only break Gatekeeper once you have all your breakers installed with Unity, and then it costs you 4. And then if you have Buzzsaw Turbine, it costs you 4. So it's like the same thing. I mean, that's why Snare Bears was on Euler. But then it's like, I don't know, you have to get your Euler and then you still have to pay 4, which is like, clearly not as expensive as like installing Buzzsaw and installing Turbine, but like, it's still like 4 is still a lot of money early in the game. And also, like, yeah, you could have Turbine installed as well in the Snare Bears one, and then it costs you 2, which is great. Yeah, I mean, like, with this said, like I think this lat like makes a ton of sense. Um, and if I like tested runner more, or I could easily see this like being better than what I played. Um, Two Anacam is sus. So like, also no free lunch is sus. Um, oh, okay, and this is a thing too. Is like against the tag NBN decks, like I don't think we need tech, because you actually just don't run and you let them score, and I find that you actually win that game as lat most of the time against like the NBN decks. Like, yes, they're gonna score false lead and they're gonna like threaten to oppo you, but like if you just let them score, and like draw your cards and rip through your deck, and I've found that that's actually like pretty consistent. So like this deck has like the fermenter and like the no free lunch in there. Yeah, this deck makes a ton of sense. I could see this, like, this probably like seemed better than what I played. Yeah, as I said, like I didn't put too much thought into my runner, just because like the deck was doing well for me. I felt good with it, so we're focusing mostly on corp. Oh boy, okay, I'm missing so much chat here. Uh, Give me a second. Okay. Sokka played Biobands. Challenge impossible. It's like, yeah, like the whatchamacallit. The build script is just like, I like that better. Um, you gotta pick Swift or Revolver, really. Yeah, that's a thing. Like, maybe maybe you play like 3 Anacams and a Swift. No Way Thule is scary to a runner already on 3 Stone Ship and Wheels. Yeah, like you gotta draw your cards, but like it's scary in the sense of like, what if I don't draw those cards? Wait a second, NSG printed Broken Ice cover. Yeah, playing Echelon instead of 2 gun is for influence, not bullets. It's for both. I mean, you can get sentry taxed. Like, I'll talk about. I got sentry taxed in my game against Santa first round with a cut. But like it's not a consistent game plan, I'd say. In terms of trying to sentry tax me. I think if you draw Echelon early, the line is 90% to throw it out into the heap and make it work. Yeah. Feels real painful if you don't have the full rig up, even with Turbine. Yeah, exactly. Back to homework. Good luck to the stream. Thank you. Timmy's great. It's so good to meet Timmy Wong, by the way. This is like I don't think I've seen a game of you playing on stream. Oh no, Timmy, you were the one who. Man, this message was sent 8 minutes ago. Like I'm like so far behind on chat, but I gotta get to everything. Timmy says, I tried cutting Revolver, but it's a bit hard finding a better use for the influence and shaper at the moment. Yeah, exactly. Again, like, if I put more thought into it, like, maybe I can figure something out, but just on the surface, like, cutting Revolver for Echelon seems to make some amount of sense. But yeah, it's so great to meet Timmy. Like, because I've been playing the game for 10 years now, right, in 2014, and, like, when I started playing, like, the first year and a half or so, like, I was just like playing with my friend at home, playing like a little bit with like the meta in my city, had like no idea what like the global situation looked like. But like once I started realizing that like, oh, there's like national tournaments, there's world tournaments, there's like large tournaments that people travel to. And like there are streams going on and like players who like do well at these major tournaments. Like Timmy was one of the people that I was like, wow, like that's really cool. Like that was like a name up there that I like recognize. And one of the games that I remember watching was, I think this was the lower bracket finals of 2015, where you've Dave Hoyland playing ETF and Timmy's playing Anarch, I want to say. But like, yeah, that was the game where like Dave was like not doing well, didn't have a really good board, installs GFI naked, sits around, does nothing, and then like installs an ice in front of it, continues doing nothing, installs another ice in front of it, continues doing nothing, and then there's like install a third ice, or maybe it was a second ice, and then goes double advance, and is like, oh my god, like Timmy's been trying to find the last agenda, couldn't find it, it was on the board the whole time, and now Dave is like threatening game point out of nowhere. And then Timmy goes and like runs R&D and has 4 credits exactly to steal an NAPD contract. And like Dave was like, oh, like that was like, it was so close. And I remember watching that either live or like on video afterwards. It was probably live. And like, yeah, it was a very, very early like competitive Netrunner memory for me. You could drop the revolver in the build script for 2 Swift. You could. I think my lat ended up closer to the Tiebreakers build than any Snare build. Yeah. Empirically, though, Swift lats did very well at Worlds. Yeah, it did. Yeah, I mean, like, Swift was like, there was a time when I was playing the lat, like, when I was testing for Worlds, I was like, man, like, maybe I should be playing Swift. But then I was like, no, we're just going to stick with what we're doing. Yeah. Just because, like, the Anacam situation was just, like, more fun and more, like, it just spoke to me a little bit better. Yeah. My opinion on 2x Anacam versus 3. You should be on 3x Anacam, 100%. That was like, I hadn't looked at this deck list too closely, and I was like, we're on 2 Anacam? Man, Rotom, what happened here? I guess we just like are tight on deck slots. Like we got a second telework instead of the third Anacam. No, you need 3 Anacams. It's like, it's very important. Getting Anacam, getting your 5th MU is like so important. And it gets you draw the entire game as well. There's no good Kogi breaker that solves Gatekeeper MIC early. Maybe Euler. Yeah, Euler's like a good one. Fizerum. Yeah. So and Alex. We'll obviously talk about Alex later, but Fizerum is like is a good way. So like, and this is like probably like a great way of spending the 3 influence is we cut a revolver for Echelon and then use the 3 influence for Fizerum. And like, and I really wanted to do that early on in like testing this. And I don't know, like maybe just like the cards didn't quite line up for me, because now that I'm thinking about it, that makes a ton of sense. Is you cut the revolver for Echelon and you cut a card slot somewhere for Fizerum. And now your Fizerum, you can like Fizerum through Gatekeepers. Now, I think Fizerum is unnecessary for everything else, but like against Gatekeeper, it's really, really good. So, and I really wanted to do that, but it just like wasn't good enough to justify. But now that I have Turbine, like you can justify playing Echelon, which means you can justify cutting a revolver, which then gets you your Fizerum. So I think that makes a ton of sense, actually. Yeah, this is definitely a meta prioritize corp over runner. Oh man, I'm so far behind. Timmy Wong's username is his name cut into trigrams. Okay, somebody's gonna have to explain to me what a trigram is. Watching Timmy play Making an Entrance on stream is one of my favorite early Netrunner memories. Nice. I rewatch that game often, yeah. I swear to God, that game was one of the top recorded games in Netrunner of all time. It literally got me interested in going to tournaments. Hadn't set foot in one before that. Okay. Yeah, the trigram thing. Okay, I'm finally caught up on chat, which means maybe we can consider moving on. But Timmy Wong, it's a square. D is the first one to notice the type of anagram. Awesome. It's a square. Name with letters going down. Name with letters going down. I'm so confused. Look, we can, like, I'm supposedly good at Netrunner, but, like, I'm not good at these other things, okay? Is it the general feel that competitors and teams focus more on corp tuning over runner? Might explain the overall corp favor in this meta of OP runners. I don't know. Yeah, okay. I think that was like a pretty thorough chat about my runner. We're like, man, it's been an hour and a half already. I haven't even gone through the games. You read it skipping to every third letter. Oh. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. You read it by skipping every third letter. Cool. Okay. That makes sense to me. Thank you, Alex. Okay. There's the runner. Cutting Revolver for Echelon and playing an Entangler makes a ton of sense. As I said, like, I had thought about Entangler. I really, really wanted Entangler, but just, like, cutting Revolver for Entangler didn't make sense at the time because I wasn't playing Turbine yet. And now that I'm on Turbine, it makes sense to play Echelon, and which means, like, it makes sense to make that change. I can see that being a thing for this deck. By the way, is Jeff still in here? Can somebody tell me when Dawn is supposed to release? Like, am I gonna be, like, in this meta for Circuit Breaker or end of Q1? Ah, okay. So we are still going to be in this meta for Circuit Breaker, unless there's like a ban list update. Barring a ban list update, we're going to be in the same card pool. So I guess I am still going to have to think about this meta. Districts will have this meta barring ban list. Dang. Okay, fine. I'm okay. As like, I think you've heard me say this already, but like, I'm very excited for rotation. Like, it's gonna shake things up so much. Like, I think the game is gonna get slower, which is exciting. Because like I think Rashida as a card, but also just like a lot of other cards are like make the game very swingy. So like, did PD draw Rashida or did they not? Means like the game is gonna be like ending on turn 7 or 8 versus ending on turn 13. So like that's like the game is just like really swingy, and makes it more subject to variance, which is like exciting for me. That might the prospect of that going away is exciting to me. But maybe it won't, and like new cards will come out that make it not that. But like at least it'll shake a lot of things up. Is this playing any FFG cards? Rotation affect this at all? No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Unless Trick Shot gets banned. SMC, I guess, but that's Ashes. Parisha Bones Scrubber seems to be the biggest impact. Yeah, there's gonna be, like, asset stuff. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not gonna think about it, and we're just gonna let rotation happen, let NSG do their work. I trust them, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, exactly. The difference between drawing Rashida for decks like PD or Ob is too much. And I hope the power level of cards is a little more even. Yeah, exactly. And then Joe, what brings up what is a lot of people's concerns, which sounds like a really real concern, is I have no idea how corps are going to keep up with current runner power after rotation. We'll see what spices in Dawn. Yeah, exactly. we'll have to see what Spice isn't done, because that's true. Like, a lot of runner cards are like really, really good, and they're not rotating. Rush Corp is so bad even now. Now, even with Rashida's. Yeah, like there's just like runners are really good. Again, we'll see what happens. Like maybe what'll happen is rotation's gonna happen and corps are gonna be like really bad and runners are gonna be really good. So we're gonna have to ban a lot of the runner cards. And I would be happy with that. But again, this is all just speculation. We'll see what happens. Okay, I want to talk about my games. This is the final standings. We'll get there, but I mean, I could just, you know what, we can just click through all of my games. So the very first game, we get paired against Manda, and Manda is oh boy, is a volunteer there, who is there with her husband. I don't remember where they're from, but they will like lovely opponent. And I think from my understanding, she was like people in the volunteer, like the volunteers were like, oh, Montreal is where they're from. Yes, I remember that now. Yes, man is from Montreal. Was there with her husband. They were like enjoying the weekend and volunteering and running certain parts of the tournament. I think they were near the prize, the artist colony table. And from my understanding, it sounded like they were like encouraging her to like, you know, you should go play. Like you'll like meet a lot of great people and like, don't worry, like it's not gonna be that bad. And then like they had a good laugh that she was paired against me round one. This was like my first, like this was like round one, like getting into things. We're against a kit. And we kind of like, again, like this is a matchup that I had practiced and like kit has 2 programs. So they get one installed, you SDS it, you score an SDS, it gets trashed, and then like their tempo is just really bad. And then I ended up scoring out. No, I ended up scoring 2 agendas and then clearing house killing. Just because like, and the thing is like scoring agendas is not, in addition to it being a path to 7 points, like the ability on SDS and the ability on Basalt Spire is just really strong. So really I was just scoring agendas to get the agendas out of the game and to also get the unscored ability. So that's what happened here. SDS score, shooting a breaker, and then getting the clearinghouse up and winning was a solid round 1. Okay, and then round 2. Round 2 we get to play our runner. We're against PE. PE is one of like the decks that are like really scary to play around. Because Manda was one of the artist colony superheroes. Yeah. I saw Manda hanging out there a bit throughout the day. Yeah. Okay. Round 2. Round 2 we're against PE. PE is like always really hard to play around, especially in Swiss, because you never know what's in their deck. You don't know like if you're gonna run into Snare, if you're gonna run into Fuji. You have to play around with Genesis the entire game. Like they might score like a Sting or a House of Knives, or like they're gonna like maybe they have Reaper function, maybe they have Moon Pool, they have Cohort Guidance Program, Wage Workers. Like there's just like so much crap out there that you have to play around. So like it's always a scary matchup. But we figure it out. This was a matchup where the Buzzsaw shined. So like the first runner deck I played, I was rewarded for playing Buzzsaw. This might have been the only matchup where I was rewarded for playing Buzzsaw now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, like we ran into Vampy. I don't think we even had a turbine, and we just like pay 3 to boost, pay 2 to break. It was 5 to break, which is like the same cost as breaking it with Unity with all your breakers out, which I didn't have. So, yeah, solid game against PE. Keep cards in your hand, and things should be okay. Round 3. Oh boy, this was my first scare. I should have lost this game. I definitely should have lost this game. This was against Blurby, very, very strong player, playing a Anacam Turbine Hoshiko. And they were just doing really well. Nothing too spectacular in terms of like cards that were being installed. Anacam, value. I didn't get wall-to-wall rolling, so I just like played pretty slowly. And this might have been like my first little hint at how important wall-to-wall is in the games where I wasn't being attacked. And obviously, like when you sit down against Hoshiko, you don't know if this is a deck that's trying to attack you. In my mind, a deck that's trying to attack you is a deck that's trying to gain value off of central accesses. So that is specifically Leech. Generally, a deck that's trying to attack you is a deck that, in my mind, is playing Leech. And they're playing like Crew, or Leech Crew. Leech Crew decks are trying to attack you. And those decks you can win by just defending. But sitting down in Swiss, you don't know what kind of Hoshiko this is. So I mulliganed expecting to play against like an aggressive deck. And it turns out it was an Anacam deck that kind of set up Breakers, set up Turbine. And they eventually find a SDS at a certain point in the game, and they decide to trash their Turbine, because they're playing Turbine Anacam Hoshiko. And they decide to trash their Turbine because they had discarded their Buzzsaw and their second copy of Buzzsaw, second copy of Cleaver already. And basically they got a little bit greedy at the very end of the game, where they decided to... Oh, also I was super flooded this game. In the top 15, there's 44 cards in my deck. In the top 15 cards, we drew 5 out of the 6 agendas. In the top 15 cards, okay? And then the 6th agenda was the 18th card. So after 18 cards drawn in my deck, okay? So like opening hand of 5 cards, plus 13 more cards, that was all 6 agendas in my deck. No Spin Doctor, no Judge Work. My turns were sus as heck. Like I had like 3 credits and like it was like a logjam on a remote that I didn't want to res, and my turn was I had 4 agendas in hand and a Biovault, and I go mandatory draw an agenda, and we're like install Biovault in the remote, credit. And I've got 5 agendas in hand, and he goes, run the remote, no res, access Biovault, trash it. And I'm like, yeah, that all is good. Right? And then like next turn we draw Trojan Horse, and I'm like, we need this to win the game. Like this game is going so poorly. We're so flooded. Like the only way I win this game is if my opponent somehow like misplays and trashes their Icebreakers out of hand, their extra copies of Icebreakers, and uses all of their labor rights, and I go and like Trojan Horse their Cleaver. So I keep the Trojan Horse, I click for 3, and we discard a Basalt Spire. And on the next turn, Ice Archives has a Whoredom in front of it. And on the next turn, they've got Buzzsaw and Turbine, and they just run Archives, pay 1, and they steal the Basalt Spire I just discarded. And I like pick up a hedge fund. It was the most sus thing you've ever seen. And again, we eventually find the 6th agenda. And I basically make HQ super taxing, and R&D was just a mess. And they decide to make this run where they labor rights their Turbine back in, and Turbine was the last card in their deck, and they decided to run a server with Bankar. And then there was a logjam there. They chose not to break it, and they took net damage, and the net damage hit an event, which triggered Anacam, which drew the Turbine, and then I hit the Turbine with the next net damage off the Bankar. So that was like a major misplay. And then it like HQ ended up being like very expensive. They could spend all of their money getting into HQ, or they could spend they could spend 18 credits getting into HQ because I had like Winchesters and Logjam and Mest on there, or they could spend 4 credits getting into R&D, which had just a Mest. So what they did was they were just like checking R&D over and over again, and they kept finding nothing because I had all the agendas in hand. And and then eventually we run them out of money, and I get the clearinghouse kill because they have no cards left. So very, very, very early scare with my corp deck in Swiss. Do I think there should be an PE, Nearprint, and Dawn, or a similarly mean Jinteki ID? All the NSG Jinteki IDs are not mean at all. I don't know. I don't, like, this is why I don't do, like, card design and testing, because I'm like, I don't know. Just, like, I'll play the cards that you come up with, and, like, creating new cards is, like, I feel like that's not really my forte. But, like, probably, because Jinteki's, like, the net damage... Like, net damage is one of Jinteki's things, so, like, having an ID that synergizes with net damage is probably makes a lot of sense. Love having all the agendas in HQs, Wayland. Your deck may have been giving spoilers for later in the weekend. It maybe. Well, my deck was, at least I drew the agendas into hand, Joe. Okay, round 4. Okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom for a second. So I'll be back. But round 4 we play against Deer, which is, this is a game to explain. Is that why KPI is the most tame champ card ever? It probably. I wanted something that was like a flexible utility card that kind of mirrors Dan's first card, and like that was like some easy like starting points to go off of, you know? I feel like if you're just like, make a card, any card, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Okay, give me 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Okay, what have we missed? Deer says round 4 was rough, but I'm glad it happened because I learned a bunch about my emotional regulation, which helped me later. That's good to hear. BC was pretty groundbreaking for its time. Border control, yeah. Still gonna mute until you get to round 5. Fair enough, fair enough. Okay. Is Space Meteor Sword still on the way? I hope so. I mean, like, I haven't really like submitted a very clear design on that yet. So no at the moment, but like I should like revisit that and get that going. It's hasn't been moving too quickly, I'll say. Okay. Let's get through round 4. So round 4 we're against Deer, playing Personal Evolution. Again, Personal Evolution, very hard opponent to play against because like I don't know what they're doing. And there was like a run, like I got pretty lucky this game. Like I was playing very safely. I like got my stuff installed, And then like the first run I make was a trick shot run, and we stole Regenesis and Fuji. So we got like 4 points like pretty easily. But like I don't know, that happens when you're playing P. Like you got to play Fujis in your deck, and sometimes your opponent's gonna steal them. And then we get into a fun little dance where because I just stole 2 agendas and one of them was Fuji, the 2 counters on the Prana Condenser now became 5. And it was like a bunch, there was like 2 ice on there. I had no breakers installed. So I spent the next 3 turns not running. Because if I run, then House of Knives gets triggered. I think D, like, I think this was a misplay where, like, I think D had an ability to House of Knives me on the trick shot run, and they chose not to. I don't remember if it was the same turn, but there was definitely an opportunity to House of Knives me after I stole the agendas, and the Prana Condenser got to 5. And D did not get the 6th counter on the Prana Condenser, which gave me the ability to spend time drawing. So I was drawing to either get my breakers down and go run after it, or one of my 2 pinhole threadings. And I eventually, I think it was like 3 turns later, like the Prana Condenser sat at 5 counters for 3 full turns, and I like drew cards and improved my board for 3 full turns. And I eventually find the pinhole. We pinhole it down. Crisis averted. And then I think from there, like once I pinholed it down, like my board was set up. I had 4 points. D had like 2, I want to say, maybe 3. But I think I was like well in control of that game, and I was like definitely gonna win in my mind. Yeah, and then it turns out that there was a card that was installed in a remote that was not the card that D had thought it was, and it turns out it was a piece of ice. So there was like an illegal card that was installed in there from like many turns ago, and that ultimately resulted in a game loss. So that was the result. Like that's how that game came about. But yeah, that's unfortunate. You should ask Zoe if you can combine some of your champ cards to make an ID. So that is actually a thing. I can combine my champ cards to make an ID. I don't know if that offer is still on the table, but it was at some point. So that is a thing. Again, like I need an idea, but that is a thing that I can do. Last I checked, but that was a while ago, so it might not still be on the table. If they mitosis with 5 prana counters, were you just dead then? Mitosis. Well, 5 prana counters, like prana takes 2. Prana costs 2 clicks to use, so you'd have to spend 1 click getting a 6th counter, and then 2 clicks on prana to kill me. I did have Anacam, so yeah. Alex asking, was Blood in the Water around or was Anacam down? Anacam was down, so you can't deal 5 damage and then 1. You need to deal 6 damage all at once. I think one of yeah, and I think there probably was a turn where it was at 6 counters, and I like ended my turn and stone shipped to not die as well. Yeah. So that was round 4. Let's go on. On to round 5. We're 4-0. And we are up against... Oh, right. My name is not up here because round 5 we're up against Brandon. Round 5 we're up against Brandon. This game was on stream. Again, like, solid game. BTL against Crew Hosh. Like, I had tested this matchup. Like, it's a really good matchup for the BTL. And yeah, like it was a solid game. You can check that out on stream. I did end up winning on time. I scored a Basalt Spire, and then Brandon wasn't able to touch an agenda, and we won 3-0. Which is like a lot closer than I would have liked the game to be, because like 1 lucky access from him, and the game is now tied, and we each get a point. But it is what it is. Like time gets tight. And as I said, like if you watch my actions in that game, like that was like a really good showing of the level of preparation you need to play a corp like this. Whereas like you're given a lot of complex situations and you just have to play quickly. Because the game is going to go long and your opponent is going to have to spend time to think because it's complex for them. So it's on you to play quickly. Yeah. So that's what happened that game. And like I'm going to rip through Swiss a lot faster than the cut because I'm going to have like some videos of the cut. Round 6 against Rotom. Oh boy. Okay. Here's a good one. You are like everybody like this is okay. First of all, I played against Rotom in the team tournament. And this tournament this weekend was the first time I'd ever played in-person Netrunner with Rotom, and it was amazing. Like it was so much fun. Like we were both like talking it up. It was like great banter, like talking just about like random testing stuff or like about like Netrunner stuff, and like we both knew that like I knew that he knew that like what to do, and he knew that I knew. Like we just like we had like such a very high level understanding of the game. There was a moment in like there was like a couple moments in especially in the Crown of Servers matchup where I was like the way that I've played this suggests that this card is Rashida, and I know that he knows that this card is probably Rashida, so he's probably going to go and check this. So like, because a lot of the times when you play, like I'll often think about like the different ways that a certain situation can go. So for example, if you install a Rashida on the board, like when the runner is taking their turn, that I might think about what am I going to do if I fire Rashida, and what am I going to do if I don't fire Rashida. So if my opponent trashes Rashida, then and I draw like something useless, what am I going to do with the cards I have in my hand? And if I fire Rashida and I draw 4 cards that are useless, what am I going to do with the cards in my hand? And obviously the difference being I have 3 credits. And in that situation against Rotom, I was like, he's definitely going to run this, and he's definitely going to trash. So what am I going to do? Because I'm definitely not going to fire Rashida. And that was just really awesome. Because I was just like, I just trusted that his level of play and understanding the game would get him to running this remote. Like, I love that. Jai, heyo, Mr. 234, greetings from Jetlag Town. Hey, how's it going? I'm like, Jai is also another person that I got to meet. They got the pleasure of meeting at Worlds. And yeah, like, such like, I was like, I'm so great to meet you. And I'm sure we'll definitely run into each other in person again some other time. But like, yeah, I really, really enjoyed like playing with you and meeting you and like interacting. Like that was all super fun. And I mean, I'm going to talk about that real soon here. But to get back to Rotom, so I played against Rotom in Crown of Servers. So that was 2 games. And this is my 3rd game against Rotom this weekend. First game in the standard tournament, obviously. And he's playing PD. This was like, I was having a solid game. Like, most of the time, like, people have seen Rotom do this against me on, like, online games a lot. Like, online Netrunner games a lot. Is where, like, I sit down against Rotom, it's Euros, or it's like, North American Continentals, and he rolls me, right? And like this was a game where I was like, I was doing pretty well. Like he didn't get the perfect draw. I was drawing, like I was getting the cards that I needed, and like things were going pretty well. And I find an Ikawa project. I find a 2-pointer. He scores an architect deployment test. He scores an off-world office. So I have 5 points. He has 4, and he's got a card in the remote. And I don't think it's the last Ikawa project. Okay. So he's got a card in the remote. I don't think it's the last Ikawa project. And like the game is going really solidly for me. And I'm like, and I go for this deep dive, and I have DJ Sable and I have Hannah. So we go run. and we like pop the Hannah, so I have 3 clicks, okay? And we play deep dive, so I have 2 clicks. And we C8, and we miss. No agenda. Okay, if the card in the remote is an agenda, which it was, that means there's 3 agendas left. And I wasn't expecting there to be any in HQ, which there wasn't. So there was 3 agendas in R&D. And we deep dive. There's no more than 20 cards left in the deck. There's 3 agendas in the deck. We deep dive, we whiff. And we're all sad about it. You know, Cat is next to us, and Cat's all happy about it. And then I'm like, all right, we're going to deep dive again. And we play the second deep dive, and Rotom's like, man, like I feel like we like slow rolled him a little bit. Cause I think like he was like, oh, like, you know, deep dive whiffed. What a relief. Oh, you have a second deep dive. That's like, you know, you're playing poker and you're slow rolling, your hand, and you show one card and you don't show the other one. I assume you only pop wheels after the first dive whiff. Yeah. We would have done it in some way that makes sense. Yeah. So then we play the second deep dive, and we whiff that too. And now we're like screwed. Okay, because now I've got like 1 credit. Well, I've got like 2 credits or something like that. Like I think I have 3. I think I have 3 credits, and like my board, like I've used a lot of my power counters. Like it's not like we have telework or something we can bounce back quickly off of. Like the econ in my hand is gone. Like now we're in a bad spot after the double deep dive whiff. Rotom scores the off-world that's in the remote. Game goes on for a little bit. I like get some cards. Time is approaching, and I like make some runs on R&D. See nothing. See a border control. He installs it on R&D. Time gets called, and I'm like, okay, I can get money, and I mark his HQ. I can make 1 run on HQ, and then we can make 1 run on R&D. We can get border controlled, and we can run back. So we're basically going to access 1 card out of HQ, 1 card out of R&D. And he also freshly installed a card in the remote. So I go click 1, we go and pinhole it, because if it's an agenda, I can go and steal it. It's a Rashida. Fine. And then we go and we run HQ, and there's like 4 or 5 cards in HQ. Don't remember which one. Yeah, there's 4 or 5 cards in HQ, and we hit an Ikawa project on a 1 in 4 or a 1 in 5. So after whiffing 2 deep dives, we find the Ikawa project out of HQ, the second copy of Ikawa, and we continue undefeated at the end of round 6. Like, double deep dive whiff. Crazy. But we still got there. Okay, remember that deep dive whiff. That'll come in, that'll be important later. Round 7. Round 7, we're against Zinchling. This is this photo. We're at table 1. Chris, as usual, is a wonderful opponent, really, really good player. I played against him at Worlds last year. And like I ran into him a couple times just like playing in like Cascadia and like other tournaments along the West Coast. So we pair up against Chris, and this is built to last against Lat. And I think this is the round where I like have a good, like I have like a great draw where we get like our early ice to protect our centrals, and we get our wall-to-wall running really quickly. So we get a logjam on R&D, a logjam on the remote, and we like start wall-to-wall advancing both of them, getting them to 13 strength each. So I think Chris has got like propeller, cleaver, turbine, and it was just too expensive. Or was it pressure spike? It might have been pressure spike. I don't remember if it was pressure spike or cleaver. I think it was pressure spike, actually. Yeah, I had spike, yeah. It was pressure spike. So it's like, so that's why I was at 13 strength, is because like 1 base strength on the pressure spike plus 2 on the turbine gets it to 3. So then you like, boost gets you to 12, and that's why I had the strength at 13. So you had to boost one more time, and like, yeah, it was a really really like strong game on my side. But like that was this was like my first hint at what I was going to like what I needed to do against Lat. And this is like a little bit of a side narrative that like went on this tournament, is like, how do I best play against Lat was something that I seem to still be kind of working out. Because I wasn't totally sure how necessary opening with wall to wall was. And it, as it turns out, it was very necessary to open with wall to wall. And in this game, this showed, is that I had wall to wall taking the entire game. We got the log jams up, and like that's what won me this game, is because I had like super taxing barriers. Yeah, and like and we'll get to this in later games where I play against Lat, where things don't exactly go this way. And that's where I started having problems. So like you're learning throughout the tournament, and this was like a key moment where I played against Chris, against Deep Dive Lat, and I like had wall to wall and log jams, and this is like the game was going well, and like I won this game like confidently. And the same cannot be said about later rounds. So keep this one in mind. I also drew my programs